Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and I guess former Mayor Pete, he stepped in some shit recently, and it's not looking too good for him at the moment. Yet again, another liberal and out and open gay man throwing trans people under the bus. He had an interview recently, and it didn't look too good, some of the stuff that he is saying. And it's just a reminder that there are so many Democrats out there who are willing to compromise with the Republicans about trans people and the trans community, and they are happy to chuck them under the wheels of the bus to make a smooth transition into getting the moderate right-winger to vote for them. And of course, that never happens because given a choice between a moderate right-winger and a full-on right-wing fascist type, the right-winger always goes for the real deal. They never go for the diet version of it. Anyway, I'd like to start off with this. Here, hold on. I wanted to show you this. Definition: scapegoat. In the Bible, a scapegoat is one of a pair of kid goats that is released into the wilderness, taking with it all the sins and impurity, while the other is sacrificed. The concept first appears in the book of Leviticus, in which a goat is designated to be cast into the desert to carry away all the sins of the community. I start that off with because that is what trans people have become these days. And a convenient small member of the population that is easily cast aside to make things a little bit easier on the larger public. And, let's have a little compromise with fascism. Anyway, so moving on, this is the interview in question. He's on the morning edition, and he's asked about the transgender community and not really digging what he's got to say.
We're almost in the middle of a giant debate on various podcasts and other platforms. Rahm Emanuel, former White House Chief of Staff.
Former White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel, just so you know, is a wretched, horrible person. He was Barack Obama's Chief of Staff for the first 2 years of his first term. And he's one of the reasons why Barack Obama did not do as well as we all hoped he would. Hope and change, not with somebody like Rahm Emanuel. But anyway, I digress.
Holder of other significant positions as a Democrat, gave an interview to Megyn Kelly just the other day, and she asked a series of questions about trans people. He ended up contradicting most Democratic Party orthodoxy about trans people, ended up by saying, agreeing with the idea that a man cannot become a woman, and then said he...
By the way, just a little refresher here. Pete Buttigieg, who has now grown a beard to butch it up a little bit, because he was getting so much backlash from people like Lauren Boebert, notorious for masturbating a guy at a Beetlejuice play in New York City while she's vaping and just jacking the guy off. Anyway, that's a different story. But Lauren Boebert was giving him shit about his husband and their new child, saying that Chasten, that's his husband, is now chest feeding, and all of the shit that you got as a gay man, and doesn't seem to show any empathy for another member of the LGBTQIA community.
Going to head for the witness protection program because he was aware that some Democrats would be unhappy. What's your...
Yeah, man, because lefties and liberals are all about the cancel culture, and we're going to throw Rahm Emanuel in the gulag. Y'all didn't know that we actually have a gulag. It's right here in Central Park. You had no idea, but we got one. We got a gulag, and that's where we throw them all in. Of course we don't have a fucking gulag. Jesus Christ, man. If he's canceled, then why do we always see Rahm Emanuel out there giving interview after interview? He's totally canceled. That's why he gets to go on all the interviews. Dumbass shit.
To that, and how would you try to appeal to people who disagree with you about it?
Well, I think the approach starts with compassion for transgender people, compassion for families, especially of young people who are going through this, and also empathy for people who are not sure what all of this means for them, like wondering, wait a minute, I got a daughter in a sports league. Is she going to be competing with boys right now? Right, and just taking everybody.
If he'd have just stopped with the first two, everything would be just fine. But now he's talking about we need to have empathy for parents out there who have worked up this imaginary boogeyman in their head about what if my daughter has to run track with a trans girl? Oh my God, the sky is falling. Because it happens every day, all the time. Trans people are coming out of the fucking woodwork. They're everywhere. You had no idea, but they are everywhere. In fact, you're talking to one right now.
Seriously. Mm-hmm. And I think when you do that, that does call into question some of the past orthodoxies in my party, for example, around sports, mm-hmm. where I think most reasonable people would recognize that there are serious fairness issues if you just treat this as not mattering when a trans athlete wants to compete in women's sports.
Meaning the parent who's complained about this has a case, in your opinion?
Sure. And that's why I think
No, they don't. No, they don't. They absolutely do not. It is not so goddamn prevalent that every Midwestern mom and dad out there needs to get up in arms about, oh my God, my daughter is going to lose to a trans person in her swim meet. It happened one fucking time, and that woman, Riley Gaines, is now fucking famous and on Fox News. So she managed to parlay her tie for 5th place into a career in political discourse. Wow. Otherwise, she'd have just been a 5th place loser? By the way, the other 4 that led Riley Gaines and the trans person, they were all cis women. But nobody ever talks about that. It's just Riley Gaines got beat or had to share a 5th place podium with a trans person. Oh my God.
Decisions should be in the hands of sports leagues and school boards and not politicians, least of all politicians in Washington trying to use this as a political pawn.
So it should be in the hands of sports leagues, huh? I'm sure that's going to play out great. No, we don't need to leave this up to the state. We need to leave it up to sports leagues. Are we going to have genital inspection? Who knows? I mean, and this is the thing. This is going to affect women way more than it affects trans people, because trans people make up about less than 1% of the population. Women make up 50% of the population. So the chances of having a girl have to go through a genital inspection are a hell of a lot more likely than a trans person. What if your little 9-year-old daughter with a pixie haircut is out there on the soccer field, and the father of another daughter out here is really up in arms that his daughter's team lost and says, that girl with the pixie haircut, I need you to go check her genitals to make sure that she's not a boy, because I think it's unfair that my daughter's team lost. You think that is not going to happen? It already has happened. It's already happened. That story I just said, that's not a hypothetical. It literally happened. Anyway, we move on from Pete here. And this is another story. This is Leverne Cox. She is a queen in the trans community. We all love her. And she tells a story about another young trans girl.
Drama series, I want to tell you about a young person named Fischer Wells, a 7th grader I just met this week who lives in Kentucky. Last year, she put together a girls' field hockey team at her school and found some friends to join the team. Now, when Fischer joined up or signed up for the field hockey team, there were 2 other girls. So there were only 3 girls who signed up for field hockey. So Fischer went around to all the girls at her school in Kentucky and said, we're having so much fun, you should join the team. And with Fischer's efforts, they made the requisite number of girls so that they can compete in field hockey. They practiced really, really, really hard, and the night before they were to play their first game, Fischer found out that she could not play because she is transgender. Yeah, that happened. But eventually she was allowed to play. But then the state of Kentucky overrode the governor's veto banning all trans girls from competing in sports in the state of Kentucky. Now you should know that Fischer Wells is the only known trans girl competing in sports in middle and high school in Kentucky. She is the
One girl, one trans girl in the entire state, and the state, all of the state legislature got together to write a law to ban her from a sport that she helped make. What'd she say? She was seventh grade? Seventh grade. An entire state has gone after her. Are you telling me in Kentucky that there are no other pressing issues? No healthcare issues, no affordability issues, no housing issues, no grocery prices, no pay gap issues, no nothing. Nothing going on but the fucking rent and trans people in Kentucky. Is that what you're telling me? That dog don't hunt, honey. I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry. Anyway, I appreciate Leverne Cox. Thank you so much for, to talk about that. Now, here is Fischer Wells. These states have few, if any, trans student athletes. They pass sports bans anyway. When 13-year-old Fischer Wells testified against Kentucky's trans sports ban in February, supporters of the bill wouldn't look her in the eyes as she spoke. I know that fucking feeling. That's a lovely feeling when people won't look you in the eye. To me, that tells me you're a bitch. You're weak. You're scared of me. God, you're such a fucking coward. They were covering their faces and looking at their notepads, looking around the room and checking the ceiling for any cracks, Wells told the Huffington Post. I felt like I was the most intimidating thing in the world. 13 years old. You're not scared of the 13-year-old. You're scared because you know that you're wrong. You know that you're being evil. And you're ashamed of it. You're fucking ashamed. That's why you're navel gazing. That's why you're staring at the ceiling. You are ashamed of yourself, and you should be. Looking back, Wells said it's because she wasn't what proponents of the Senate bill expected. At the time of her testimony, Wells was the only trans student in Kentucky competing in school sports. She literally gathered all of the girls together so she could have a team. It was her little pet project. And then when they got the team together, they kick her off. She thinks lawmakers are anticipating a timid student who would shyly plead with the government leaders to let her play sports, but that's not the kind of kid she is. Wells is intelligent, self-possessed, and not afraid to admit that she has the largest ego in the room. As she said with a laugh, she shows up to the Senate Legislative Committee hearing the day in the bright pink pea coat zipped all the way up, her short hair frizzed and wild, and told lawmakers the bill was disgusting. She ain't wrong. It's fucking disgusting. It took a room full of state senators to shamefully get together to pass a law against this young woman. Congratulations. You've done a great service for your state. How many transgender people are living in the U.S.? It also goes over how many trans athletes. How much of, sorry, I got a gnat messing with me here. How much of the U.S. population is transgender? The number of people in the U.S. who identify as transgender is estimated to be approximately 1.6 million individuals. Keep in mind, there are about 330 million people in America. It's a very, very small percentage, less than 1%. That's like 0.5%. Spanning both adults and youth, according to a 2022 study by the Williams Institute at UCLA and a census data reviewed by Newsweek. This includes 1.3 million adults and around 300,000 young people between the age of 13 and 17. The 1.3 million people identifying as transgender make up about 0.5% of the American adult population. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, this is about the same size as the population of Dallas, Texas, or a population of San Diego, California. Are there more transgender? Well, we'll skip that here. I want to get to this point here. How many trans athletes are in the U.S.? The number of transgender athletes in the U.S. remains notably low. Jillian Brandsletter, a spokesperson for the American Civil Liberties Union, told Newsweek in 2023 that the number of trans athletes isn't comprehensive, but she is also certain it's a very small portion of the nation's population. According to Brandsletter, Save Women's Sports, an organized advocacy for banning transgender athletes from competing in girls' sports, identified only 5 transgender athletes. 5 transgender athletes competing on girls' teams in school sports for grades K through 12. So nearly half of the states in the country, actually I think it's more, I think it's 26 states in the country, have passed transgender bans or bans on transgenders competing in sports. Honestly, it's just trans girls, because I don't think any of them have a problem with trans boys competing in men's sports, but they have a problem with trans girls competing in girl sports. Look, I'm trans. I make no testosterone. That's the stuff that gives you the big muscles and the strong jawline and, of course, all the hair and all that stuff. I haven't made testosterone in years. In decades, I haven't made it. So I don't have the prerequisite amount of testosterone to consider me a threat to another female athlete. I play tennis. I enjoy playing tennis. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a court with a cis woman who has wiped the floor with me, whipped my ass. I went away just squealing from the feeling. She just completely dominated me on the court. And she's a cis woman. And she's like 6 inches shorter than me and has less reach than me. But she's a better tennis player. It's got nothing to do with me being trans having an advantage over another woman. You know, I was having a conversation with somebody about, a family member who mentioned that I am really strong. Like, wow, you're really strong. And I'm like, well, I work out a lot. And that particular family member goes, well, you're also a male. And I'm like, okay, I feel that. That sounds very painful. Thank you so much for bringing that up yet again. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. But at the same time, I'm a gym rat. I go to the gym constantly. Like I said, I don't make testosterone anymore. So the muscles and the tone that I have, it's got nothing to do with the amount of testosterone I make, because I make literally the same amount of testosterone as any other woman. It's made in the pituitary gland. It's a very, very small percentage. So I make as much testosterone as any normal cis woman. So the muscles and the tone that I have got to do with me being athletic or me going to the gym constantly. I'm 4 days a week, baby. It's all about maintenance at this point. But telling me that the reason why I am so strong has got nothing to do with me going to the gym, it's just got to do with me being born a male, that's a bit of cope. And it's a bit of bullshit, and you know it. Anyway, 5 transgender girls performing sports in K through 12 for the entire nation. And over half of the states have passed anti-trans laws. Great job, folks. Great job. Here's another one here. Transgender make up a tiny fraction of all athletes. In December 2024, that he knows of fewer than 10 transgender college students, athletes among 510,000. So 500,000 college athletes, a total of 10 transgender people. That's so many. Oh my God. I'm scared shitless. We need to pass laws, man. Fuck making your grocery prices go down, who gives a goddamn how much your rent is or, how much your health insurance payment is? We've got 10 transgender girls in college sports. We got to do something about it. Meanwhile, they didn't give a good goddamn about Title IX until this trans thing. And now all of a sudden, Republicans are screaming about Title IX and protecting women. We got to save the children. Oh my God. How about this one? School shootings in the United States. So far this year, up until July 25th, just last week, we have had a total of 33 school shootings. 19 were on college campuses and 14 were on K through 12 school grounds. The incident left 15 people dead and at least 41 other victims injured. So we have more dead people this year, halfway through the year. We have more dead people from school shootings than we have transgender athletes in the entire country. Go fuck yourself. Protect the children. You don't give a good goddamn about kids. Or you do something about that. Michael Phelps, he's 6'7" wingspan. Why don't they ban him? He's got a longer wingspan than most people. Don't you think that that's an unfair advantage that he gets to have, exceptionally long feet, short legs, and ridiculous wingspan? It's almost like he was built to dominate in swimming, which he won 28 gold medals. 28 medals. 28 medals, 23 golds. Should we ban Michael Phelps? He's got he's got an unfair advantage when it comes to other swimmers. I don't think it's fair. We should ban Michael Phelps. I mean, if trans people have an unfair advantage, which they don't, but if trans people have an unfair advantage, wouldn't you say that Michael Phelps has an unfair advantage? How about this one? LeBron James, he's 6'9". Steph Curry's only 6'2". Steph Curry should be pissed off, bitching and complaining right now. He should be on Fox News going, it's not fair that LeBron James, he's 7 inches taller than me. I don't think that he should be playing. He's dominating the sport. We need to get rid of him because he has an unfair fucking advantage. I guess Kevin Durant, who's 6'11", doesn't feel like LeBron has an unfair advantage, but maybe Steph Curry does. I mean, what are we talking about here? You want to talk about another advantage? GOP Transportation Bill exposes children to genital inspection by sexual predators, Democrats warn. After the Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives passed an exclusionary anti-trans bill, the so-called Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2025. How Orwellian is that? We are going to protect women by throwing other women under the bus. Democrats sounded the alarm about how the bill exposed children to genital checks and exploitation by sexual predators. The legislation, which bans transgender girls and women from competing in school sports, aligns with their gender identity, passed narrowly 218 to 206 vote, with 2 Democrats, Texas U.S. Reps Henry Cuellar and Vincent Gonzalez, voting in favor. Henry Cuellar, he is anti-abortion. He's Democrat in name only. I swear to God that we should get rid of that guy. He should be voted the hell out of office. But thanks to Nancy Pelosi, who we stand behind our Democrats, except when you're a progressive Democrat, and then she will stand in the way of it. But anyway, that's another topic altogether. But thank you to those 2 Democrats for contributing to this bunch of bullshit. The measure seeks to amend Title IX to mandate that sex in athletics can be defined solely based on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. Here we go again, that eugenicsy genetics bullshit. It prohibits individuals whose sex assigned at birth is male from participating in an athletic program designated for women or girls if those programs receive federal funding. So, I'm going to take away your funding, get rid of all the trans people, pretend like they don't exist. Here, I got something else for you. This, by the way, talk about the inspection. This is a woman, a young girl with a short pixie haircut, like I was talking about before. This happened, I think, last year, 2 years ago. She goes to the movies and she goes to the bathroom. And while she's in the bathroom, she hears this woman bitching and complaining. And then when she comes out of the stall after going to the bathroom, because that's what you do in the bathroom, she comes out of the stall and this woman accosts her because she is now transvestigating and she's now the trans police, and she's giving this young girl with a short haircut all of the hard time in the world because she feels fucking entitled to do it.
We'll wait for the police to come and figure it out.
Okay. Let's wait for the police to...
Yeah, because this is not the way you play your... Go down on the strip and try to do it there.
You play your shit, go down to the strip and try to do it there. She's at the movie theater, there to watch a movie and maybe have a rest stop in the bathroom. What the fuck are you talking about? This is the quote. I knew she was talking about me, so I started recording. Today, a woman thought I was trans and harassed me for using the bathroom.
Don't do it up here. This is a suburb. Not allowed. Not allowed. Yeah, you think you're going to be a woman? It's okay.
You think you're going to be a woman when it's okay and be a man? She's a woman. This person is a cis young woman with a short haircut.
And be a man? It's okay. No. Figure out your identity in your bedroom, okay? And then project it on everybody else and we'll accept it. This is not acceptable.
Let's go get security.
Yes, let's go.
I like how she's like, let's go get security. Get this crazy bitch off my back.
She's harassing me for being in the bathroom.
What's going on?
Well, I'm asking her what her identity is.
It's my girlfriend.
The guy's like, it's my girlfriend. Get off her fucking back.
Yes, it's your girlfriend, so it's a girl.
So it's a girl. It's a girl. I love it when they call you it. That's one of my faves. It. She, him, shim, it. I don't know what it is. Kill it. I don't want to go into a long story here, but I have been referred to as it on a couple of occasions. And one time I almost got my ass beat by like a dozen grown-ass men. And they were all yelling at me, calling me it. So, yeah, not a great feeling. And this girl is a regular cis girl. And she's getting shit from some entitled old biddy because she saw a short haircut. She just got done watching 6 hours of Fox News and feels like, oh my God, the trans are everywhere. They're in the bathroom of my favorite movie theater. I've got to do something about it. Let me put on my transgender fighting cape and let's go to work, baby. God damn, man. Fucking people. Forgotten history of the world's first trans clinic. This right here, that picture, is a 1926 portrait of Lily Elby. They made a movie about her. One of the Hirschfield patients. Elby's story inspired the 2015 film The Danish Girl. Anyway, Lives Worth Living. That such an institute existed in as early as 1919. There was a trans clinic, LGBT clinic in Germany as early as 1919. It should have been the bedrock on which to build a bolder future, but as the institute celebrated its first decade, the Nazi Party was already on the rise, and by 1932, which was very early in the Nazi rise, it was the largest political party in Germany, growing its numbers through a nationalism that targeted the immigrant, the disabled, and, quote, the genetically unfit. What do they call them? Useless eaters? Weakened by economic crisis and without a majority, the Weimar Republic collapsed. Adolf Hitler was named chancellor in January 30th, 1933, and enacted policies to rid Germany of Lebenswert, Leben, or lives unworthy of living. So useless eaters, lives unworthy of living. So if you're disabled, if you're sick, if you're trans, you're all in the same boat. And honestly, you shouldn't be around. We should probably cull you from the population. What began as a sterilization program ultimately led to the extermination of millions of Jews, Roma, Soviet, and Polish citizens, and homosexuals and transgender people. So I tell you, Pete Buttigieg, that when you are, I'm okay taking a hands-off approach. When you take your hands off the wheel, you let Republicans steer. But I'm not willing to take a hands-off approach. Let's compromise with them. Honey, I hate to break it to you, but you helping the Republicans throw people like me under the bus, that means that we're not going to be here to protect your gay ass when they come for you. In the 60s, during the Stonewall riots, what gay pride began at the Stonewall Inn in Chelsea. There were two very prominent trans people that were fighting so hard for LGBTQ rights. Sylvia Rivera and Marsha, I believe her name was Marsha Johnson. And they were hard fighters. They fought so hard. And as soon as they helped the community win a little bit of freedom, the gay people threw those two under the bus. I'm not saying that all gay people are like that. Most gay people are very sympathetic and empathetic to trans people. I've got plenty of gay friends who love me. But when I see one of the most prominent gay men in politics right now just going, you know what? I mean, parents, they have a right to be worried about the 5 trans kids competing in sports. That, we need to placate their feelings. We need to give them a little grace so they can be upset and fearful that their daughter is going to have to play soccer with a young trans person. Here's something that you should actually be concerned about. High cost of participation in youth sports. This is the separation here. The growing divide in access to sports, the haves versus the have-nots, the financial burdens of early sports specialization affect individual families and widen the access gap between affluent and less affluent households. As youth sports becomes more commercialized, access to the opportunities has become skewed towards wealthier families. So trans people are not stopping your daughter from competing in sports. It's the cost of competing in sports. If you're a wealthy person, you've got full access to that kind of stuff. If you're a poor person, it's that much harder. That's why everybody was so enthralled with Venus and Serena Williams, because they came from a poor background, but they managed to become the top of their field, and they're astoundingly amazing tennis players. And that was and by the way, one of the very few, black women tennis players. You notice when you watch tennis, they're mostly white because it's an expensive sport. You have to have access to a tennis court. You have to pay trainers. You've got, equipment and rackets and balls and all those things. Most regular common folk can't afford to do that kind of stuff. This is your barrier to sports, not some trans person standing in the way. I brought up Megyn Kelly a little while ago. Here she is again. She's got some words. I remember in the Pete Buttigieg interview, they mentioned Rahm Emanuel. Well, here's Megyn Kelly interviewing the illustrious Rahm Emanuel, and let's see how hard he uses both hands to throw us under the bus.
Boys should be able to play in girls' sports.
No.
Do you believe that?
Is this the round robin?
Yeah, we'll do a quick rapid fire, and then we can move past this.
Okay.
Do you believe that kids under the age of 18 should be able to be put on puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones?
I think parents have to make that decision.
They love saying cross-sex hormones because they love to throw that sexualization into it. You know, that's why transgender people used to be called transsexuals, and trans people were, you know, advocating against using that word because it's a sexualization that it's not really about. It's got nothing to do with who you're having sex with. It's got to do with what gender you identify with. And sex and gender, two opposing things. Not the same fucking thing, but cross-sex hormones, Megyn Kelly.
Themselves, I think that is a child is too young at 18 to make that decision. It has to be made with a family and that choice. I think before somebody makes a life decision, they have to think twice about that.
So you disagree?
Sweetheart, I hate to break it to you, but yeah, trust me, we're all thinking about that. Any trans person has given it a thought. It's not some whim thing. It's not like I go down to the doctor at, you know, as a 13-year-old and go, give me all the drugs I want and start chopping off body parts. That's not how it fucking works. And by the way, when you talk about trans affirming care, as a young person, it's got nothing to do with any drugs or surgery. It's got to do with you're an 8-year-old trans girl and you want to wear a dress. That's it. You know, maybe you're 10 and you're going to a therapist. That's trans affirming care. You're just talking to a therapist about this. And you get to wear a dress, you know, and put little bows in your hair because you feel like a girl. Or, you know, flip it on the opposite end. You're a trans boy and you want to, you know, cut your hair short. But that's the extent of trans care for young children. The amount of trans people on the hormone blockers, it is, I mean, we're talking in the hundreds. A very, very, very small amount of young people in the hundreds. You know, you got people like Matt Walsh out there going, oh, there's got to be like 5 million of them out there. There's like 50. There's like 200 and I think it was like the number I saw was like 240 people, 240 trans people on hormone blockers out of the entire country, and you're losing your fucking mind. Go fuck yourself, Matt Walsh. Why don't you call in another, you know, a bomb threat on another hospital? God, what an asshole.
Agree then with the Tim Walz policy in Minnesota, where a child who doesn't get affirmed by his parents can go into Minnesota and get jurisdiction there and get the parental decision overruled.
Yeah, look, I think these are...
Yet again, that whole, you know, they're... Tim Walz is putting tampons in boys' rooms. No, he wasn't. He put tampons in the bathrooms for the girls. Give me a fucking break. But they make up shit. They make up these boogeymen in their head and they scare themselves to death at night.
Life decisions, and I'm also slightly both. I have two minds, not two minds, but two strains that influence an opinion. One, there's a life decision, and a child can't make that decision.
That's why they make the decision with their doctor and their parents. It's a group decision. It's not some little kid going willy-nilly, I'm going to take some fucking drugs and have some surgery. It doesn't happen that way. You're just making it up.
You have to have some moral development and character and judgment and foundation for that. Two, parents have to be involved in that, and I think that's for them to make. I don't think the public should be in that space.
What if, I mean, there are some parents out there who are completely whacked in the head. There really are.
I'm looking at one right now. Do you have any kids? I'd hate to be your fucking child, you psychopath.
They're
well,
not
that's not
all
news, is it?
But it's
not
it's
just on. No.
No, it's not news. But to me, it's terrifying because
I left this out, but I want to repeat it. Is I have a son and two daughters, and they are physically different, and that's why when it comes to sports.
Why did all the Democrats bail off of that point? The couple came out right after the election and they said what you just said, and then they got browbeaten, and then they started to walk back.
The answers in the question. I mean, that's ever scared me. And, you know, I used to say this to President Clinton and President Obama. Sound is not always fury. Sometimes it's just sound. And don't assume just because somebody's screaming at you, they represent more than their own voice.
Should we be putting men in female prisons? Men claiming they're women?
No.
Men claiming they're women in female prisons. I'm not, I don't think I'm going to be put in any prison, at least I hope not, but I don't want this woman to be the judge of whether or not I need to be put in a men's prison or a women's prison. I mean, ultimately, she would want me in the men's prison. And what would happen to me? She wouldn't give a good goddamn. They would probably have conservative comedians out there going, oh, he probably likes it because he loves to take it up the ass. Something like that, something to that effect, and get a good laugh from the audience. She's just chuckling away at it, but just the flippancy of her dumb-ass questions.
And, all right, here's my last one for you. Can a man become a woman?
Can a man become a woman? No.
Oh, wait.
Thank you.
No.
That's so easy. Why don't more people in your party just say that?
Because it's wrong, you skinny, evil bitch. I guarantee you that half of you watching this had no idea I was trans up until this point. Do I come off as any less of a woman now that you know that? I mean, if you do, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but I live my life as a woman. Everybody in my life knows me as a woman. They treat me as a woman. I treat people according to how they want to be treated. It's called empathy. It's also, if you're a religious person, it's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you say your name is Rick or Mark or Steve or John, I'm going to call you by your name. If I tell you what my name is and you say, no, I'm going to call you by your dead male name, that's not really the golden rule now, is it? Anyway, hold on. I got a little bit more here. Let's see. Here is another Democrat that has contributed to throwing trans people under the bus. Colin Allred, he lost. He was running against Ted Cruz last year and he lost. But he gave a little capitulation in one of his campaign advertisements. And it's just, yet again, just more weakness. You think if you actually showed a little backbone, if you stood up for people, that maybe you get a few more votes as opposed to bending over and feeling shame about it. Because that's ultimately what the people who watch this think. If you back off from protecting a certain group of people, it tells me that you're ashamed. And that makes me go, why would I want to vote for you? Because you have no spine. You have no moral center, no moral core. You just go where the wind blows. It makes me think that you're wishy-washy and not worthy of my vote.
He's lying about our children. I'm a dad. I'm also a Christian. My faith has taught me that all kids are God's kids. So let me be clear. I don't want boys playing girls' sports or any of this ridiculous stuff that Ted Cruz is saying.
If you're a trans girl, doesn't mean that you're a boy playing girls' sports. Here's another one. Seth Moulton says he stands by his comments on trans athletes, calling Democrats out of touch. Seth Moulton is defending controversial remarks that he made about transgender athletes in the wake of the presidential election. President-elect Donald Trump's campaign spent millions on anti-trans political ads this fall. The Massachusetts Democratic congressman told the New York Times after Trump's win that Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone. Honey, you wouldn't offend anybody if you stood up for them, if you stood up for people. But instead, you are too busy trying to compromise with Republicans. Quote, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on the playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. Here's another one. Gavin Newsome. who is very possibly running for president in 2028. That's if we have free and fair elections. But Gavin Newsome shocks LGBTQ allies with criticism of transgender athletes. Governor Gavin Newsome called it deeply unfair for transgender athletes to participate in girls' sports today. Notable change in his position that thrust the Democratic governor into the center of the national maelstrom. I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that, Charlie Kirk, who was one of his first guests on the Governor's Side Project podcast, because every politician's got to have a podcast now. But one of the first people he brought on was fucking Charlie Kirk. And all he did was give him a neck massage and tell him, my kid loves you, man, and I agree with you. We need to throw trans people under the bus so we can get back to talking about real stuff. It's the issue of fairness. It's deeply unfair. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you, Charlie Kirk. This is him on the Shawn Ryan show, saying pretty much the same shit.
That I hear the most is the kids, you know, and I don't know if California's one. I know Washington's one where, you know, the state can come in and basically take your kid if you're against gender affirming care.
Yeah, there's some. It's a yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about taking your kid. Meanwhile, ICE right now is going into grade schools and middle schools, grabbing kids. But yeah, the state is going to come take your kid. Fuck you, man. Seriously, fuck you.
There's some nuanced language and yeah, around that.
What about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9. Come on, man. I get it.
What do you get?
Those are legit. You know,
there's nothing legitimate about it. An 8-year-old is not having surgery. An 8-year-old is not taking any hormone blockers. They're too fucking young. They don't have hormones kicking yet. The closest thing to transgender care for an 8 or a 9-year-old is either cutting their hair or wearing different clothes. That's it. Maybe going to therapy and talking about it. Yeah, man, I get it. I totally get it, man. Wow, surf's up, dude. Surf's up. Yo, bro, I'm running for president, bro. What's up? What's up, man?
It's interesting, just the issue of age. As someone that's been
stuttering,
so focused
blubbering mess
on equality, broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage. Mm-hmm. The trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years.
Honey, the trans community has been around for as long as the gay community. But I'm only hearing about it for the last couple of years, because I'm busy doing stuff and things, man. And, I'm wheeling and dealing. And, when during COVID, I was out there breaking all the rules and shit, going to fancy wine dinners and whatever, bro, man, whatevs, I totally get you right wingers. You hate the trans people. And, and I'm kind of coming along with you on this, man. Let me invite another right-winger onto my fucking podcast. What is transgender affirming care? Your question's answered. I kind of gave you a little breakdown of it, but it's a number of different things. It is as young as children are, depending on their age. It's as simple as a clothing choice or a haircut, maybe some mental help, going to a therapist. And as you get older, if you are starting off young, I knew I was trans when I was 4 years old. I didn't know what trans was, but I knew something was up. The first time I saw a trans person, I was 8 years old, and I saw them on television, and I'm like, holy shit. Wow. I'm not crazy. There's somebody out there that is just like me. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I was caught in drag as a kid and got the shit beat out of me. And I was bad, and then I was chastised, and then I had long, in-depth conversations about why I'm wrong and what's wrong with me. But I knew something was up. I've known for years. So if I had had a chance to go to therapy, then maybe, my parents would have helped guide me along to something else, and I could have started a little bit younger. But as it turns out, I had to wait until I left the house. But as soon as I did leave the house, and I was old enough to leave, then I started on my path. But up until that point, I had to keep things hidden because I knew that I would get punished for it. But I knew something was up with me. But when I first saw that first trans woman on television, I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There's somebody just like me out there. I don't feel so alone anymore. So being able to talk to people like that at a young age can be very beneficial to somebody who feels ostracized from the rest of the community, like I did. But, if you have accepting parents and you live in an accepting state that hasn't tried to ban your existence, then maybe when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, you might have the opportunity to get on hormone blockers. So you have a little bit more time to decide what you want to do with your life. And if you are certain that this is the life you want to live, and it allows you a little bit more time without the other gender changing your body. When a young boy goes into puberty, his bone structure gets larger, hair starts growing on them, their muscles start to grow, all of the things that make a boy a boy. Up until puberty, boys and girls are relatively similar. But when puberty hits, that's when the split happens. So you've got a few extra years to decide if this is the path you want to go down. And if you decide that it is not, then you can get off of the hormone blockers, and then regular hormones will start, and then you can start living your life the other way. But if by chance you do want to continue on this path of being a trans person, then it affords you a few extra years to make that decision. And then when you're 18 years old and you want to have a surgery to complete yourself, it's entirely up to you. But then you're an adult and you can do that, and you haven't been affected by 5, 6, 7 years worth of hormones in the opposite direction, so to speak. And you get a chance to transition much smoother. Of course, I didn't have that option, but I started when I was 18. So I started at a young enough age that I could do that. Thankfully, I didn't have to wait much longer than that. But at the same time, it would have been nice to have been accepted by my family and been able to, start my path a little bit sooner. But, woulda, coulda, shoulda, it didn't happen. But why torture young people, especially such a small number of people? Anyway, I got one more thing here for you. This is just my personal opinion. The difference between no beard and beard. This is J.D. Vance having gender-affirming facial hair. He looks like a soft, pudgy little doughboy back in the day when he wrote his little book, Hillbillyology, and he was the darling of the CNN, New York Times circuit. And he was out there hawking his book and saying that, hillbillies are dumb and stupid, and I tried to educate them. That's why I left, because they didn't want to learn from me. And then he went off to Washington, grew a beard, and changed his whole dynamic, and now he's a big, strong, tough guy. Honey, I hate to break it to you. You still a doughboy. You just happen to have hair on your face. Gender-affirming facial hair. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you, share a little personal information about myself. But at the same time, when you have a very prominent gay member of the LGBT community, and very possible that he could be running for president in 2028, oh my God. My nightmare scenario is Pete Buttigieg running against Tucker Carlson. Oh my God, just perish the thought. But when you have somebody like him who has a much larger voice than most trans people out there, and this kind of rhetoric not only gives the right wing more room to push against the trans community, it also normalizes this kind of talk in the Democratic circles. And they're like, maybe we did go too far with the whole trans thing. Maybe we need to push them back in the closet. I understand your plight. I understand where you're coming from. And we agree that you should have rights, but, maybe not right now. Maybe you wait a little while until all this kind of dies off, and then, then we'll come back to you in a few years if that's okay. If you're still alive, then maybe we'll give you your rights. So this just proves that just because you are a member of the community doesn't mean that you are a defender of the community. And I don't want to say, Pete Buttigieg, go fuck yourself, but I will say, do better. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like and subscribe. Keep rocking.